Good morning and good early afternoon. So my name is Aurélien Orange from the Coax Foundation, co-director and organizer of this competition with several colleagues. Today we'll be hosting this match between two teams who are starting the competition. The two teams received the topic 7 days ago, and they will be developing the argumentation, of course, during this first match in the Group H. Group H, where there are 4 universities, and these are the two of them who are starting today. So before we'll be, I would say, reminding the topics they received for everybody watching, including the judge. So many thanks as well to the judge for giving your time to assess this match. I will give the floor to the protagonist of this match. So alternatively between the two institutions, of course. So we start with first Mr. Joshua Hale in Baltimore. Welcome.
Good morning. I appreciate you having us.
Thank you. And in which year of studies you are, Mr. Hale?
Oh, I'm a second-year law student here at the University of Maryland.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome. We have as well Jeanne Lepers. Welcome.
Hi. Sorry.
Which year of studies you are?
Sorry, I just didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, in which year of studies?
First year.
Okay. Welcome. We have as well Mr. Gever. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you all. I'm a first-year law student at the University of Maryland.
Thank you. Welcome. We have as well Miss Jeanne-Eva Nguyen. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm really honored to be here. I'm a first year at the Catholic University of Lille in France.
Thank you. Welcome. And we have a third member in the room as well for the team from Lille, Miss Manon Samson. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I mentioned as well the coach, because one of the two coaches on the side of the University of Maryland just joined. So welcome, Miss Leana Finlib. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here.
Thank you. And of course, there is as well another coach for this team who will be watching the match, I guess, so Professor Peter Danchin. So greetings, Professor. Thank you for your time. And on the side of the Catholic University of Lille, there are two coaches who will be watching the match, Miss Sarah El Saat and Miss Claire Besson-Humbert. So for this match, we will have 3 judges. The 3 judges will be watching the match and rewatching the match during the next 2 business days they have. So you can expect the results to be around early next week, Monday or Tuesday. And so the 3 judges are, one of them is in Greece, and one is in India, and one is in Brazil. So greetings to all of you. The topic which has been sent to both teams are connected to this general theme for this day 1 of the group phase, which is state responsibility and environmental law mainly related. The topic was states have legal obligation under international environmental law to prevent the extinction of species, for example by implementing conservation programs and protecting critical habitat. So now we share my screen. It is the moment when both teams will know which positions they will have for this debate. And the team will be in favor during the randomizing of the positions. We'll be starting with the first introduction. So as you can see, there are 2 chances for each institution to be in favor or to be against. And I will activate now the randomizer. So the team from the Catholic University of Lille will be in favor of the motion, and we'll be starting then with the first introduction. It means, as a consequence, that the University of Maryland will be against the motion. So concretely, it means that the Catholic University of Lille will defend the position that states have a legal obligation under international law to prevent the extinction of species and protecting critical habitat, while the University of Maryland will defend the position that states do not have a legal obligation under international environmental law to prevent the extinction of species and protecting critical habitat. So now you have 5 minutes to review your notes, and then we'll hear the introduction by the Catholic University of Lille. So we are done with the 5 minutes of preparation. So I stop sharing my screen. And before we start with the introduction by the Catholic University of Lille, I just want to remind everybody that when you see a yellow card, it means that you still have 30 seconds in your speaking time, and you can continue to speak, of course. When you see the red card, it means that time is over, you can finish your sentence, but it's advised to not start a new sentence, otherwise the judge might penalize you with a deduction of points. It's up to them, of course. So now, we start the match officially, so it means that I will give the floor to the Catholic University of Lille for your introduction. You have 4 minutes.
Can I speak?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Mohit Agadi, in his most famous piece, The Environment and Sustainable Development, The Role of Use, states that environment is no one's property to destroy. It's everyone's responsibility to protect. We are at a pivotal point in history. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the current extinction rate is estimated to be 100 to 1,000 times higher than the natural rate of extinction, which translates into roughly 1 million endangered species, both plant and animal. Today, we ask you, why as humankind do we inflict this onto ourselves? The reason can be explained in 2 simple words: economic losses. The 2021 Desktopter review found that the global economy depends on ecosystem services worth 44 trillion annually. And in this sense, enforcing international jurisdiction in terms of protection of species would represent billions of dollars in economic losses. Despite the lack of purely legal definition of the terms endangered species and critical habitat, we will be referring to the commonly accepted definition prescribed by the US Endangered Species Act, notably used during the 2007 case 551 US 644, known as the National Association of Home Builders versus Defenders of Wildlife. The stance the opposition may hold today would be to say that we cannot deprive developing countries of their sovereign right to exploit the environment for economic benefit. Their stance may also rest on the idea that creating homogeneous international legislation on the protection of species would be unjust and close to impossible. Yet, this selfish, self-destructing stance has been proven wrong time and time again. From a purely legal point of view, since the 1968 African Convention on the Conservation of Nature, the globe has, as a community, in so close to 20 successful implementations on this topic, including, but not limited to, the Conservation on Biological Diversity, the Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, and the UNCLOS, but many, many more. We have proven time and time again that as members of the legal field, the international preservation of endangered species and critical habitats is not only possible, but should be an obligation. Greta Thunberg, one of the great faces of our time, expressed in 2019 in her speech to the UN, and I quote, we are at the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money, the fairy tale of our eternal economic growth. Indeed, there is a global need for accountability. Many countries and regions have started their part of the work. The Ecuadorian constitution included provisions recognizing the rights of nature. France has elaborated an entire legal text on the conservation of the environment, known as Code de l'Environnement. And the federal law of Maryland, funnily enough, strictly follows the Endangered Species Conservation Act, under which the punishment for violation of the text is strictly prohibited. Furthermore, failure to act is not just an ecological disaster, but is already a breach of international legal obligation. The Stockholm Declaration of 1972 and Rio Declaration 1992 recognizes that states have a duty to prevent environmental degradation. And what is species extinction, if not the ultimate form of degradation? Yet, many countries, including the main environment destroyers and greenhouse gas emitters, refuse to take responsibility. And countries in which political pressure can override these conservation laws. The question before us has not only become one of choice, but of an international duty. That is why today we stand in front of you as law students, but more importantly, as the representatives of the International Human Committee. But when will mankind realize that we do not only hold a responsibility towards preserving the environment for the animals and that build their homes in it, but more importantly for ourselves, as we do not have a society if we do not have the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear the introduction by the University of Maryland. You have 4 minutes as well.
Great, thank you. And just confirming everyone can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Okay, so I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Last October, ecologist Tom Oliver told The Guardian that humanity is on the precipice of shattering Earth's limits when it comes to biodiversity loss. We are already locked into significant damage, yet Oliver warned further rapid negative changes are coming. The Living Planet Index's 2024 report found that species have declined by an average of 73% since 1970. Biodiversity loss is an existential threat to the Earth and humanity. For this reason, we cannot lie to ourselves and pretend that existing international environmental law holds states to any real obligation to conserve species. We believe that legal obligation in today's resolution should be interpreted from legal philosopher John Austin's positivist approach to legal obligation. Austin argued that legal obligations only exist when the failure to comply is met with penalties. Adopting this view and taking a critical approach to existing international environmental law is the only way to address its failures and develop strategies to prevent biodiversity loss. Our first contention is that no obligation to prevent the extinction of species exists under current international environmental law. In 2023, Professor Klaus Bosselmann, an international environmental law expert at the University of Auckland, declared that under international law, there is no binding duty of states to protect the global environment. This is because existing legal regimes rely on a soft approach, which leaves extensive discretion to states on implementation. As international law professor Abdul Aziz Meslat explained last year, international environmental law is built on soft law projects. Even foundational instruments like the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development exist to guide states rather than oblige. Stuart Harrop and Diane J. Pritchard, writing for the Journal of Global Environmental Change in 2011, argued that even when environmental law instruments such as the Convention on Biological Diversity, or CBD, were designed as hard law instruments with legal obligations, they develop into soft legal regimes. They explain that international law sources operate as, quote, aspirational policy-oriented soft law. This is because ultimately these legal instruments possess no enforcement mechanisms and rely on voluntary compliance of states. Take COP16 on biodiversity just last year. Under the Global Biodiversity Framework of 2022 and Kunming-Montreal Framework of 2020, nations were supposed to submit action plans, but fewer than 30 were actually submitted, and only a fraction of those adhered to the original framework. A survey of environmental policy experts by Santo et al. In the E-Earth System Governments Journal in 2023 found that signatory states were consistently hampered by domestic political barriers. French policymakers in particular noted steep opposition from interest groups to implementing biodiversity protection policies. They noted the lack of concrete guidelines or enforcement mechanisms from the international law sources as an issue. Fundamentally, international environmental law instruments are soft law and do not contain true obligations. To say they do would be to ignore the reality of the past several decades. Our second contention is that confronting the reality and failure of existing international environmental law is necessary to protecting biodiversity. Writing on the limitations of COP15 in 2022, Professor Joanna Smallwood of the University of Sussex argued that international biodiversity law is held back by its neoliberal foundation. Instruments like the CBD emphasize supposedly sustainable resource exploitation practices while failing to truly confront the unequal production and consumption generated by global capitalism. Against this threat, scholars are formulating new approaches to international law to address the failures of the last half-century. Professor Smallwood proposes recognizing the rights of nature along with increased engagement with indigenous communities that have built sustainable ways of living. Fundamentally, though, these new ways forward will not be possible if we continue to, as historian Simone Pirani describes it, be distracted by the circus of international climate talks, which governments use to claim they are taking action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we start with the first rebuttals. We hear the first rebuttal by the Catholic University of Lille. You have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Wait, we don't hear you very well.
Translation on the environment.
Yeah,
Okay, it's good now?
it's a bit better.
Okay. Okay. Wait. Ouais. Oh. Ah, okay. This that way it's better?
It's better, yeah.
Okay. You have just hashed us that there was no binding legislation on the environment. Are you climate skeptic? The preservation of critical habitats and the preservation of extinction species is the common goal of the humanity. In that sense, the international community need and have legal commitments is necessary for efficient results and global awareness. Treaties like the CBD and the CITES obligate countries to implement measures that safeguard species and their habitats. The CBD established in 1982 mandates that member states develop national strategies.
I think we'll have to... Wait. Yeah, the audio is really scattering at this moment. So we'll have to restart for sure, but what is necessary is that you really find a way with your audio to, I don't know, use the other computer or, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Jeanne Lepers is going to move over to my computer.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
No.
Okay. Up. Okay.
Please cut the audio. Because I hear my voice.
J'ai pas compris.
Oui, vous gardez l'audio que dans seul ordinateur.
Oui. Je recommence du début?
Oui. Yes, please restart.
Okay. You have just hashed that there was no binding legislation on the environment, but are you climate skeptic? The preservation of critical habitats and the preservation of extinction species is the common goal of the humanity. In that sense, the international community needs and have legal commitments necessary for efficient results and global awareness. Treaties like the CBD and the CITES obligate countries to implement measures that safeguard species and their habitats. The CBD, established in 1992, mandates that member states develop national strategies and action plans for biodiversity conservation according to the Article 6. Moreover, Article 8 further requires states to establish protected areas, restore degraded ecosystems, and regulate activities strengthening biodiversity. Initiates under the CBD include the Global Strategy of Plant Conservation, which aim to protect at least 75% of threatened species in their natural habitats, and the Aichi targets, which sought to reduce extinction rates and restore critical ecosystems. The Bonn Conventions focuses on protecting migratory species and their habitats. Article 2 requires states to take action to safeguard migratory species, while Article 3 obliges parties to strictly protect endangered migratory species, including banning their capture and preserving their habitats. Under Article 3, one of Ramsar Conventions, member states are required to develop and implement plans to preserve wetlands, which are crucial for biodiversity and ecosystem health. By imposing binding legal obligations, they ensure that countries adopt concrete actions to protect vulnerable species and their environments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now here the first rebuttal on the side of the University of Maryland. You have 2 minutes as well.
All right, just confirming that you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Score it hasn't. All right.
I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Judges, the word should is absent from today's resolution. The pro has continually argued for why we should impose legal obligations on states to protect biodiversity, but they have failed to analyze why states already have those legal obligations under existing international law as the resolution asks us. We are the only side that has actually interpreted the resolution. As we argue, states currently have no such obligations under existing legal regimes. We put forth our positivist interpretation of legal obligation based on John Austin's work. We believe that obligations are only exist when met with penalty. Such compliance mechanisms are wholly missing from the kinds of legal instruments they describe. They mention the CBD. They talk about the Berne Convention. But their naming of different articles that aspirationally call for protecting biodiversity does not respond to the actual arguments we put forth in our first contention, which were that it is the broad consensus of international legal scholars that instruments like the CBD are not true legal obligations. They are soft law instruments. They have no way of enforcing compliance with states, and that's why we've seen broad failure. Judges, as both sides have agreed, biodiversity loss has only gotten worse. These existing legal instruments have continued to fail us. That is why we believe it is necessary to confront this reality, to abandon the circus of international legal climate talks and actually consider building alternative routes forward, as some scholars are doing. But judges, if we continue to pretend that existing legal instruments like the CBD are real legal obligations, we are only lying to ourselves and to the environment. To at least begin to reform the failed international environmental law system, we have to first recognize its failures and the fact that it does not hold true obligations.
Thank you very much. Now we move to second rebuttals. We'll hear first the second rebuttal from the Catholic University of Lille. You have 2 minutes.
So you mentioned the use of soft law, but despite being a soft law, it doesn't mean that it doesn't carry a significant weight in guiding state behavior. Furthermore, I would like to say that the intrinsic value of nature emphasizes that species have the right to exist independently of human needs. And you based your argument on only one author, limiting more possibilities. For example, in 2008, Ecuador became a pioneer by including the rights of nature in its constitution. And this legal framework has granted nature the right to exist, persist, maintain, and regenerate its vital cycles. Then the citizens of Ecuador could legally defend these ecosystems. And similarly, I would like to mention the 2021 Charter on the Rights of Living Things under the United Nations Harmony with Nature program that advocated for recognizing living beings, including animals and ecosystems. And as you mentioned, Canada, actually, its species at risk were part of an act in 2002, which further exemplifies legal protections for natures. We would like to argue that we base our argument on international conventions. Meanwhile, you are quoting positivist theories. So wouldn't legal commitments be more receivable for this debate? Furthermore, the European Environment Agency legally stated the prevention principle. As you know, customary international law encompasses the obligation of states to prevent significant harm to the environment of other states through the no harm rule. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear the second rebuttal as well from the University of Maryland. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And I will start in 3, 2, 1. So first, I would also just like to mention that we did not just quote one author. While we rely on Austin's positivist definition of legal obligation, in our opening statement, we did quote a broad survey of international environmental law scholars. And I think that we actually do agree that that protecting biodiversity and limiting the extinction of species is a very important goal, a common goal across humanity. We are just saying that we cannot continue to lie to ourselves about the effectiveness and the obligations that are imposed by these non-binding treaties. So we mentioned the CBD, Articles 6, 8, and 14. But again, however, the implementation of these programs, while mandated, are not actually enforced because there's no direct enforcement mechanism. In the examples that you mentioned, Ecuador and Canada, and other examples such as Colombia in 2018, even with the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest, we have seen states take concrete actions to limit the degradation of environments and preserve endangered species. However, these actions, when they occur, are at the state's own discretion, and they do not come from a legal obligation from international environmental law. For example, the CBD, the United States, our country, is a signatory of the CBD, but the US Senate has not ratified the CBD, which means that we are not legally bound and obligated to actually follow have our conduct and policy align with that. And again, I just like to say that the non-binding resolutions, they're not answering the fundamental question of how we can actually create enforcement mechanisms that currently do not exist. I think that is where I'll leave it for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we reach the conclusions. We start with the conclusion by the Catholic University of Lille. You have 2 minutes.
So the legal and ethical imperative for states to prevent species extinction and protect critical habitats is deeply rooted in international law, ecological necessity, economic interest, and fundamental moral responsibility. So indeed, you said that the United States signed the CBD, which represents a moral obligation, despite that this country did not ratify it. There's still some kind of peer pressure and moral and ethical behavior to have regarding the environment. So moreover, states cannot ignore the transboundary nature of biodiversity loss, which the UNCLOS and furthermore the 2023 advisory opinion of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea that recognize the legal obligation of states to prevent environmental harm beyond their borders. And beyond those legal mandates, conservation provides direct economic benefits. You probably know that healthy ecosystems can sustain agriculture, fisheries, medicine, etc., which would contribute to $125 trillion annually in ecosystem services. So conservation is not a trade-off with development, but a prerequisite for a long-term economic stability. And the reason why these commitments should be legiferated is because they are not respected. So we should implement more legal framework on it. And that's what we should work on in the future. So at its core, biodiversity preservation is an ethical obligation. So the words legal frameworks, economic realities, and ethical principles converge on one truth. The protection of nature is a duty, not an option. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear the conclusion on the side of the University of Maryland. You have 2 minutes as well.
Okay. I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Today's resolution was a straightforward and narrow legal question. It did not ask us, should states have an obligation to conserve species? It asked us, do they have such an obligation under existing international environmental law regimes? The answer is clearly no. Judges, only one side in this debate has actually engaged in that legal analysis. We are the only side that has done so and has provided an interpretation of what a legal obligation is through our use of John Austin's emphasis on the necessity of penalties to create true legal obligations. Our interpretation has thus become the operative interpretation in the round, as the pro never engages in defining legal obligation. They've continued to talk about moral and ethical obligations. They've continued to name other legal instruments under international environmental law. But we have continued to respond by citing to the broad array of international environmental law scholars who say that these legal instruments are only soft law. They don't have true penalties. They don't have true enforcement mechanisms. And thus, under our interpretation of legal obligation, they fail to meet the criteria. That's why biodiversity loss has only gotten worse under these existing regimes. But not only do these existing regimes not create an obligation under a straightforward legal analysis, it is actively harmful to take the pro's position and lie to ourselves and say that they do. We talked about, yes, we agree, there should be tougher, there should be stronger enforcement mechanisms. We should recognize the rights of nature, etc. Do things like Ecuador has done. But we can only begin to reform the international system when we are honest about its faults, when we are honest that the existing legal regimes are not working, that they do not create legal obligations. So judges, we can either continue to lie to ourselves, or we can have hard, honest conversations about what legal obligations truly are and how international law has failed the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We just heard both conclusions, so from now you are not under evaluation. So of course you can rest a little bit, you can relax. We are done with the match itself. We are now in the post-match phase of the session. And of course we'll hear your impressions. And then we do a bit of networking as well between the two teams, the two institutions as well. So we start asking Miss Jeanne Lepers, what did you think about this match, the topic, preparation and performance of both teams?
Okay.
No, the audio is not okay.
Sorry. Actually, I was quite stressed, I think, because we are just in first year with our team, and it's maybe a juridical exercise, maybe a little bit difficult for us, but we just try to do our best, and we are glad to participate.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hale, what do you think about the match?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this format. I did debate in college and high school, and I found this is certainly different, especially under the law. And I think today's resolution was especially interesting because, you know, in most debates, it's usually a should question or a kind of moral question. This was more of a legal question, which I guess as a law student, I should be equipped to do. But I thought it presented unique challenges in research and really forced us to engage with the international law. So I thought it was interesting, kind of a different kind of debate. So I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Miss Jeanne Eva Nguyen, what do you think about the match?
I thought it was very interesting. As first years, we never really had the opportunity to do such debate and with such eloquent opponents. And it's also not our mother tongue, so I found it a little bit difficult, but I felt very honored to participate.
Thank you. Mr. Giver, what do you think about the match?
Yeah, I really enjoyed today's match, and wanted to thank everyone for participating. I also want to give you all I have so much respect and admiration for you doing this in English. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but I could never talk about complex legal issues like biodiversity in another language. So you all did a great job, and I thought this was fun. But definitely a challenging resolution, but definitely interesting.
Thank you very much. Miss Manon Samson, go. What do you think about the match?
It was a very complicated exercise for us, absolutely. Elaborating an entire, the research part of it was definitely the most agreeable, I guess, for the three of us, as we have said multiple times, we only were 18, just left high school. This is a complicated exercise, and we honestly weren't ready to be against people who are so eloquent and who would play on the words so much, which was, ouch, like pretty painful. But as well, the lack of coaching was complicated, but we're happy to have participated anyways.
Thank you very much. And now, a word from the coach from the American team.
Yeah, I think both sides did so excellently. You all were very eloquent. The folks from Lille, you guys really sounded great, and your English was clear. So that was excellent. We appreciate so much the participation. This is our school's first year competing in the tournament, so we also sort of didn't know what to expect. But you guys really brought it. You had great arguments. It was a pleasure to watch.
Thank you very much. The three judges will be watching and re-watching the match if needed over the next days. We don't ask any judge to watch during the weekend, but it's up to them if they wish as well. And you can expect the results and the grading rubrics, the score sheets, in your email box as well early next week. So now it is the end of the session almost, and I have two questions to give to both teams to know a bit more about themselves and as well about their institution. So first of all, I will ask to each team, so you can choose who want to answer, and maybe the other members can complete your answer. So why did you choose to participate and register? What was your main motivation, and how was the process as well to come to that competition? So I will start with University of Maryland. How did it go?
Sure. Well, our main motivation to register was we received an invitation from Mr. Lange and the Corax Foundation, and it seemed exciting. No American schools had ever participated before, and it seemed like something that would be fascinating. We are all international law students as part of a larger law school that is far more focused on American law. So it was just another exciting opportunity to delve into the international legal field and get some great experience debating and arguing.
Yes, thank you very much. Same question now for the French team.
It was a bit of a random choice for us in the sense that in one of our English classes we have a few public speaking exercises, and so we went through a whole kind of process of selection and elimination. Basically, the teachers who thought that we had a chance at the contest selected us. We went through 2 different rounds within our own school to select which candidates would go through. So we're obviously very honored to be here, despite the nerves. But that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Now, the second question, which is very different, and this time is more about knowing actually where you are from concretely. What would be the first food, drink, or visit you would advise, for example, the French team to experience in Baltimore the first day they will come to Baltimore?
I guess I'll take the one as well as a Baltimore native. Baltimore is famous for its seafood. We have crab cakes. Excellent crab cakes, and there's a seasoning called Old Bay. It's everywhere. You have to try it. So, seafood with Old Bay, absolutely.
So yeah, Mr. Hale, you want to add?
No, it's just delicious. That's all I was snapping for. It's delicious.
Okay. Mr. Giver, you agree as well?
Yeah, I love a Baltimore crab cake.
Okay. Now, same question for the team from Lille. First day that the team from Baltimore will land.
I suppose as French people we're obliged to say wine, fine wine, cheese, pâtisserie, but we are from Lille, which is next to Belgium, so a lot less refined food. We're very big on beers, and we have an excellent Welsh, which is basically bread, mustard, and lots of stinky French cheese. So that would be our favorite, I think, as a team.
Yes. You want to add something to other members, or you agree? Yeah? Okay. So yes, of course, it's an opportunity for you to keep contact between the two teams. Of course, on LinkedIn, for example, because you never know if one day you need a French lawyer and a US lawyer when you will be, of course, practicing. So it's, yes, this competition is as well a networking opportunity between the different parts of the world and different teams. And we can tell you through the years, the students, they keep contact and they visit each other even. But what I mean is that indeed, in this group, you have 4 teams and from 4 different parts of the world, and that is an opportunity indeed to explore in the future, yeah, some opportunities to work together even or collaborating on some projects. And I add as well that I think, yes, the Law Society, the International Law Society in the University of Maryland, and as well your student association in Lille, that we see probably you are in Elsa, indeed, room with the decorations, and you did not remove the Christmas lights, no? Because I see Christmas lights, but anyway. But yes, it's yes, you want to add, Miss Sampson? No, but yes, you can connect between the two student associations as well to invite each other, to have the speakers for the rest of course, the student community as well. And on our side, yes, we send you the results as soon as possible. You receive as well the topics of your second, the day 2 match, during these days, because we are already on the verge to enter the day 2, and even tomorrow there is a first match, because there is a Brazilian team who wants to avoid the carnival, so the carnival period is next week, so they have their match a bit earlier. So, but for you, yes, it will be during the next days. It will be against the University of Malaya and the University of South Pacific. And of course, to be on a different area of law, space law, so something you don't study in year 1, of course, in your first year of studies. So it will be the very first time you will explore space law. And yes, I think you will enjoy it as well. So I want to thank all of you for your first match. It was a great start, and of course, with the feedback from the judge, you will continue to of course, make better even your strategy and some elements for researching as well. So that was great from the point of view of the Corax Foundation. Many thanks. Many thanks as well for the communication by email, because it was a lot of emails. But yes, the next step will be even more, I would say, interesting for you as well. Thank you. Wish you a great day and great rest of the afternoon. So thank you. See you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.